Ladies, gentlemen, and slayers of all ages, Dauntless. It's dead. It's absolutely, completely, undeniably shoved into the ground against its will, and it's just an absolute travesty. This game was first playable in its 2017 alpha before the beta back in 2018, then being fully released in 2019. This was by far one of the better Monster Hunter-like games I had played at the time. I mean, sure, it's hunting RPG subgenre, doesn't have a whole lot of games within it in a niche little umbrella, so there's not a whole lot of competition, but there are clear differences that you can feel when developers really care about creating that enjoyable hunting loop gameplay, that satisfying gameplay loop that keeps you wanting to keep going for one more hunt, except it becomes another hunt and another hunt and another hunt. The creative creature designs, that's the type of stuff that lays at the heart of this game, and original Dauntless way back in the day was really fun to play through, experiencing each behemoth for the first time, and I generally had an even better time each time that we returned to check out what had changed with the game. New behemoths that were added, new entire endgame mechanics and systems, even weapon changes. The game really became distinct and carved its own spot as a hunting game unlike any of the others. And while maybe it wasn't necessarily for everyone, not everybody preferred it over any other hunting games, I think if you are someone who likes this type of games in general, you could at least appreciate it for being able to thrive and grow and become its own thing within the hunting game space. However, you may have noticed I've been talking about it a lot in the past tense this entire time, and why is that? Because Dauntless is absolutely fucked, my friends. It is done. So let's talk about why it's dead now, what happened to cause this in the first place, and the rightful fury of the player base who had a perfectly good game ripped out from under them, which sort of sounds like another thing that often happens when you start interacting with crypto companies, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's start with the current state of the game. After over 2 years with no updates to Dauntless, a radical shift was being released to the game. You can now swap weapons actively mid-hunt, which is a cool thing to be able to do for sure, but that far from made up for the fact that the entire progression of the game was not only ruined within this update, but it forcibly reset every player to the start of that progression, and took away all of the weapons and all of the work that we had ever crafted in the game. Now, in this new version of Dauntless, there are only actually a few distinct weapons from each other, like 3 or less for each weapon type, which is really sad, and they are for the most part purchased with weapon tokens, a currency. A lot of players got some of this currency in exchange for the weapons that were taken away from them when the update happened, so you could then at least buy some of the new weapons, but I could only buy like 2 of them personally, and I had a lot of weapons before. But then even past that, you still had to actually upgrade the weapons, and even using all the currency that you were given for this in response for the weapons that were taken away, you still wouldn't be back to where you were power-wise before the update. They just made it so it wouldn't work that way, and fixing that, getting your stuff back in gear, would take a gargantuan level grind at this point to actually get what you need just purely in the game, with even things like higher level talents for weapons requiring the equivalent of hundreds of behemoth kills for each and every one, which, if the talents were cool and fun additions that genuinely change up the gameplay, would be great, but generally players have been reporting that a lot of these talent upgrades are just giving us back stats that we used to have, like giving attack speed to weapons that they lowered the base attack speed of with this update. So essentially, you're grinding like hell just to get back to the power level you were at before this update, with no meaningful cool changes, not even reaching greater heights or having cool new effects, just getting the same stuff after an absolutely excessive grind. And that's not mentioning pure weapon upgrades, which cost aetherite, which they incentivize you to buy the premium battle pass to get more of, and even then players who had basically made this game their life for years did not receive enough aetherite from the weapon conversion or from the battle pass to get even one singular max level weapon. And even past that, it wasn't lost on a single person that this had totally ruined the way that the game would work for any new player trying it out from the get-go now too. And as if that wasn't enough, the performance of the game is actually worse after the update. The servers themselves seem worse, with lag being prevalent for a lot of players, even despite definitely less player base on the actual servers. And honestly, as bad as all this is, the game hasn't seen updates for years. They could have literally just let it die off and even kill the servers that were active, and people definitely would have been sad, don't get me wrong, but this is different. This is somehow so much worse. It's like a full-on character assassination of Dauntless and its reputation on the way down. They advertised this update as being massive. They told us it was going to be the first new behemoth in an extremely long time, and not just any new behemoth, but the one that was designed with community input through what was honestly a quite fun stream that developers did a couple of years back, and then they just sort of highlighted all the changes that might draw people in without making any mention of everything that had been done to just completely remove things from the game at a base level. Armor and the cell system around it was completely oversimplified. You can only end up with like 3-4 skills in your armor and cells in most setups, and lanterns are gone completely now. Build variety isn't really a term that makes sense to use with this game anymore, and all of these things are big, major negative changes made to a game that people enjoyed just a few weeks before the Awakening update hit to begin with. Now that we've talked about the actual in-game results of it all and how sad that all is, let's just go over how it happened to begin with. Tracking back to the beginning of 2020, when Phoenix Labs was acquired by Garena, in a sort of mutually beneficial relationship that reportedly actually had no negative effect on any Phoenix Labs projects in general, including Dauntless, so this was a good sort of acquisition. However, in February of 2023, Phoenix Labs bought out their independence back from Garena, so they now had full rights over Dauntless and everything like that, and they then pretty much immediately sold the company in its entirety to a company called Forte. This is Forte's website. They are blockchain developers. They've launched an NFT game in the past, which unsurprisingly was very unsuccessful, and if it's at all starting to make some sense to you, I can understand why. This purchase happened at some point between February and May of 2023, but with all employees being barred of talking about it outside of the company itself, which is why the public didn't even know that this had happened until over a year later. Then, over the course of 2023, while silently being owned by Forte, Phoenix Labs cut out a large portion of their workforce, a ton of layoffs for a bunch of staff, and in September of 2023, the CEO and the co-founder, as well as the COO, both stepped down from the company, so two of the main people that control the vision of what the studio does. This left a management vacuum to be filled in what was already a very tough situation, and in the end, with the Awakening update coming to Dauntless more than a year after that happened, the best guess that pretty much any of us have got is that the new Behemoths and some of the new systems were completely developed ages ago, while the heads of the studio were still around. And then the year or so between their departure and the release of the update was just sort of the people now in charge scrounging together some sort of way to make as much money as possible from what they were likely well aware would be the final update coming to Dauntless as a game. Over the course of this, the majority, if not all of the old employees at Phoenix Labs have actually been laid off as of this point, with the most recent wave being another 50 layoffs from the company a couple of weeks ago. There's pretty much no one there who used to work there. Overall, to me, it's clear that this isn't a fault of the employees, the people who made Dauntless to begin with. It isn't a fault of the people who actually built the game and worked on it. It's a collapse of leadership at the top and the decision to not only sell the company right after getting their independence back to begin with, but to sell it to the specific people that they ended up doing so with. It is a massive shame that Dauntless is now just so much worse than it was a couple of months ago. It has ruined what was already existing, and that they have refused to ever change it back. It's really just an absolute sadness that this game will likely not be updated again in any proper manner unless it's like to take it offline for good. I feel terrible for the people who really devoted themselves to this game, and even worse for the people who made it their life's work for the last nearly 10 years before this point too, literally making Dauntless. But hey, at least if a hunting game is going to die, there's not much of a better time to do it than right before the release of Monster Hunter Wilds. I will miss Dauntless dearly. I will remember the good times fondly, but unfortunately, memories are pretty much all anyone will be able to have of this game moving forwards. That just about does it for today, everyone. I just wanted to sort of sit down and have a discussion about the sad situation that's been going on with one of the only real competitors that Monster Hunter has ever had. One that I personally have spent quite a fair chunk of time in myself too, and found a lot of enjoyment with at the time as well. Nothing tells the situation truer than the fans themselves and the reviews they've been leaving for the game, but it's clear to all that this is how you kill a video game. And I hope in future situations like this can be avoided, hopefully using this as a cautionary tale, a warning if nothing else. Feel free to leave any of your own thoughts in the comments down below the video. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.